but certainly the second play is by far the most complex one. It's got the most characters that have meaningful dialogue, the most number of characters sketched out. I've got in the next month or two.
Probably structurally the most varied too, in terms of using the metafictive aspect of having your conversations with play Jess, and speaking over the other characters.
Yeah, well, and the Jessica there, in some ways, is very much like the real Jessica. In some ways, it's a comic Jessica. And of the three plays, this is the one that's 85 to 90% a comedy. I mean, there's especially the metafictive Dan and Jessica stuff, and most of the stuff internally. But again, these are plays that I call the infidelity trilogy, but they're really not about infidelity. The first play, as we talked about, is about relationships between people. This one, you could say it's about familial relationships. You get a good family relationship between Eddie and Darla, the brother and sister, my dad and my aunt. You get a good relationship sewn between my dad and me, between Darla and her kids, between the different married couples, Darla and her husband, Dar and her cheating husband, Joey and his wife, my mom and my dad's characters. There's a number of married characters, and then you have some individual quirks, like Aunt Darla. 3 or 4 times in the play, she slams the door on someone. Christmas carols. Oh, hi, goodbye, boom.
She also is constantly saying, "If God were alive," too, which plays into the title.
Yeah. And then she has the bizarre idea. She's religious, but then she has this bizarre idea that God died 20 years before she was born, which makes no sense. But
and for a play on infidelity, the Roy and Dar relationship isn't really examined as much as, say, even Eddie and Roy's relationship.
Yeah, and that's particular. In fact, I think it's far more interesting the 2 scenes with Roy and Eddie on the subway at the beginning and the end of the play, where we get a sense of these 2 men, and we get a sense that Roy, the adulterer, has a warm spot for Dar's Uncle Eddie, who's my dad. And in the beginning of the play, you see that there could probably have been a friendship, an older man, younger man friendship there. By the end of the play, one of the key lines in the play is when Roy, early into the second meeting on the subway, Eddie says to him, "Well, so now you don't call me Uncle Eddie anymore?" And then Roy calls him Uncle Eddie. This is after he's left Dar. And then towards the end of that scene, Eddie says, "Maybe it's better that you call me Eddie and not Uncle Eddie anymore." Because it's basically a bunch of justifications for Roy for his bad behavior.